Alright guys, welcome to my channel. This is Crypto Tyke, the inflation avoider. I nearly forgot then. And I am just going to be talking about being a normal investor more than anything else in this video, as opposed to some of the big names that you'll have heard of that are on YouTube, and just the difference. I mean, there's a reason that I think my videos are fairly unique in that I am not some mega rich person telling you what to invest in. In fact, I am what most of us are, just normal people investing in crypto. And that, I think it's an easy mistake for people to make by looking at people who are already wealthy in crypto, and it's an understandable mistake as well most people will make when they don't really give it the thought that if they just copy what the big guys are doing, they're going to be rich as well. But in reality, they're two totally different games at play, and investing when you're wealthy is very, very different to investing when you're not. And that is a vast majority of us. We are not wealthy, you know, whether you be getting hundreds of thousands a year or tens of thousands a year, it makes no difference. You're still all in that same boat we are, and we aren't able to do things that other people with more wealth are able to do. So we have to be actually more strategic than they have to be. It's much easier making money when you're already wealthy than it is when you're not. So if you're looking at certain people and your mindset is just to copy what they're doing and you're bound to get rich, well, I've got news for you. You're probably going to fail, because as I've mentioned many times, we have realities to deal with, whereas people who are wealthy can afford to have X amount of money in crypto and not worry about it. Now for you who's got money, it matters. It matters to you. Otherwise you wouldn't be trying to get wealthy in the first place, because that's why you've got your money in there. It matters. So this is why I say it's good having channels like myself. Now I'm not saying copy what I do or anything like that, certainly not, because it is all trial and error when it comes to it. I've got to put my experience of business into crypto and use that experience to be able to get by and decide what is best to buy when, and what crypto I think have real world uses and long-term adoption, and that will influence the price in the long term. If you're chasing moons and just buying coins because you think they're going to moon, there's a big chance you're going to end up losing most of your money. Now you might get lucky on one, but you'll soon move that money, use the same strategy again, and end up losing it all on another. So the people who chase moons, they are the ones who usually end up with no change in their life. It's, for us, it needs to be a slow and methodical investment. And I understand slow is frustrating for people, but if you've ever heard a lot of people will be familiar with get rich quick schemes, and what people are putting out there that influence people are essentially get rich quick schemes, but in crypto. And that's why you get all the pump and dumps, you know, and people are like, well, if I can get the right side of the pump and get my money out before the dump, then I'll make money out of it. But it's not quite that simple to get your money out when it quickly deflates because of low liquidity. But also, yeah, it was funny, I got a comment from Prez, who does videos, and he's from the USA, and it's another video I've now subscribed, because it's another person that is similar to me in that he's working the long game and understands the difference between how the wealthy work and how most of us have to work to get by. And it's good to see more channels like that. In fact, I'd love to see more with people and see what they're all doing, because at the end of the day, those are the people that you can get advice from, realistic advice for you, and be able to use that advice and get better at what you're doing. I mean, with me, I started, I mean, the most recent line of business was going back to what I originally did, which was building a collection of records, selling records. But when I was selling records, I actually set a lot of the high price um, records for selling a record at a high price because I was playing the long game and I was able to wait, notice the supply and demand issues that were on the horizon, bump my price up to eye-watering amount of money, knowing full well I only needed one person to be able to afford it to buy the record, and I'd get that price. And lo and behold, time after time after time, I kept getting those prices. Now, it doesn't work with all records because some you can get loads of them anyway, so, and there's loads of them on sale, so you can't bump the price up, so you have to turn those over quick. But with those where there's only one available or two available at the time, you can bump that price up, and somebody is going to be rich enough that's into that to pay the price. And it is it's something that I've dealt with a lot, is looking at prices, markets and stuff like that. And I'm being able to bring that experience with me into crypto and looking at projects and seeing where they're at and being able to decide where my money should go, what's a good price for it, what I want to sell at, and have those ideas in mind. But this is it. If you're watching somebody, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's good to listen to people who are experts in the markets. Really good, because their insight is absolutely vital. But what I'm saying is, don't be copying people that are wealthy, because they have they can protect their wealth. So part of their strategy is protecting that wealth, and they can diversify to make it safe. But when you start diversifying as a normal person, you start spreading out, that it dilutes your abilities to make profits. So you've got to look for your own strategy and say, well, I'm wanting to make X amount of money out of this. How long am I in the crypto market for? Like me, I'm like, well, I'm in it for life as far as I'm concerned. It's like 10-15 year plan is the overall main bulk of the profits that I want to make. So I'm okay to say, right, okay, I'll buy some things and I'll just sit and wait. And other people might say, well, you're mad doing that. But I've also got a theory that I've mentioned a few times now, that there's going to become a survival of the fittest when it comes to crypto, and some of the alts and Bitcoin, obviously, they will not lose their value like other crypto does. So when it comes to buying back in, you're going to find some of them are going to be a lot more expensive than we imagined they would be, thinking we're going to round trip it if we don't sell it. So I've got partly strategic reserves where it's like, I don't touch them. They're the ones that I think long term I want to have. Now, I also have an amount that are on exchanges and stuff that mean I'm going to sell those to make profits, but there's always a bit kept back, and that is purely like, you don't touch them at all until the time, 10 years maybe from now. You know, if say something drastic happened, like Ethereum suddenly broke, yes, of course, then I'm going to look to get rid of it. You know, it's only sensible. So every plan is flexible, but that's the idea. I'm not bothered about round tripping Ethereum. I'm not bothered about round tripping Bitcoin, because they're going to hold their value long term anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I'm planning on being in them. But other things that I think fit into those categories eventually, maybe not straight away, things like Avalanche, Chainlink, even BitTensor, which I've got got into, and started buying a bit as I can go along to try and make sure I'm in there. And even if BNB, all being good with BNB, that's another one that could end up being one that just holds its value. And we've seen a little bit of that over recent weeks with the crash and the massive liquidation event there was. It's some things didn't crash quite as much as other things, or nowhere near some just held their price, and I think that's a little micro indicator that of things to come in the future. So yeah, I think it's important to always look at how long you're in it. And that's why when shakeouts like this happen, you're not going to be too fussed about it because you're in it for the long term anyway. If anything, as we all know, it's a good chance to pick up more at cheap prices and get that average price down. So it's a win-win if you're in it for the long term. The people who get shaken out are those who aren't planning on being around very long or don't have a proper strategy long term, and those people who are chasing moons as well, because boom, everything's just gone tits up and their moon looks a very, very long way off. So yeah, when watching people, it's easy to point the finger and people say, oh right, well, if they look like I do, for instance, then what the fuck do they know? Well, it doesn't mean that. You've got to ask how long they've been in crypto, what they're doing. You don't know how much I've got in the bank. You know, I'm not saying I'm rich or anything like that. I'm not. But what I'm saying is I'm cutting down on everything that I spend. I'm even now debating whether to get that upgrade on the iPhone for this year and leave it till next year, just so I can take advantage of the crypto market a little bit more, rather than paying needlessly extra money that perhaps could wait. So I'm playing the long game. I know that, you know, I know what I want at the end of it all, and I know what my strategy is, and I'm sticking to that strategy. Yes, you've got to be flexible, as I've said before, but you've got to have a strategy, a goal where you want to get to, and just copying other people, well, they're different to you. We all have our own different circumstances. So you've got to come up with a plan that suits you, that you're comfortable with, that plays to your own, and get to know your psychology as well. Understand yourself. I think that's really important, because if you understand your own psychology, you know what will happen, what will cause you to maybe react in a bad way to certain events and stuff like that. So make sure your portfolio is taking that into consideration. What would happen if everything crashed? Am I going to panic and sell, or am I going to be all right with things the way they are? You know, I always say that, and it is a vital bit of information to have and understand, because if you understand yourself, and a lot of people say, oh, I know myself, but they don't. Most people are really bad at judges of themselves. You're better off going around asking people who know you about yourself, and they'll give you a more honest version of it. Now, some people surround themselves with people who are too frightened to tell them the truth, but they're going to lose anyway, so you know what I mean, don't worry about that. I think if you're watching a channel like this, you're probably more rounded and more honest with yourself anyway, so you'll be able to do things like that to see, you know, do I panic? Do I panic sometimes, you know? What am I like in a crisis? Ask people, you know, and they'll tell you. And that'll give you, if you're surprised by the answer, then at least you can conclude from that maybe I don't know myself as well as I thought I did. And just keep an eye on things when they happen and see how you react, and then go, rather than, don't beat yourself up about it when you get things wrong and you make mistakes. Just use it to go, I did that when this happened. Why? And you get to know yourself better. And when you get to know yourself better, you start to know how to react in the market and how to protect yourself against your own weaknesses, playing to your strengths, you know. And that is where you become much better in the market at making decisions. And it is just all about being honest. But yeah, channels like mine and other people who might not look rich or wealthy or anything like that, quite the opposite, it doesn't mean we don't know what we're talking about. It's the content of what a person says that's important, and their actions, if they follow it up with actions. That is the key to finding out about a person. Anybody can be wealthy. People mainly are born into wealth. That doesn't make them smart. It just makes them lucky. And making money when you're already wealthy is really easy to do. You know, it's almost, you know, if I had that kind of money, well, for a start, I wouldn't be looking like I do anyway. But if I had that kind of money, trust me, I'd be able to make more money out of it. And that's been the case where you've had billionaires. Even Donald Trump has been bankrupt, and he got bailed out with billions by contacts and stuff like that. You know, so you've got to look at what the person says rather than what the person looks like. You know, if it's good advice, solid, then yeah, listen. You know, you don't. People aren't always right. I'm not always right either. So you've got to then decide whether filter that advice and work out what is decent and what is useful and what isn't, and tailor it to yourself. But never just copy somebody because they're already wealthy, because you will lose out that way. They can afford to take more risks. They can afford to put money on speculative coins that might never ever come in. They can afford to take them losses. You can't. So I think that's a key thing to bear in mind, and I'll leave it there for now anyway. I just wanted to share that thought. I don't know what you think. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are about that, and also do hit the like button because it helps with the algorithm, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Over 100, so I'm happy bunny about that, but onwards and upwards, I never stop. So I will catch you later, guys. Thank you, and bye bye.